Of all the things Charles Kennedy is probably best remembered for politically would be his opposition to the Iraq War, where he ensured the Liberal Democrats were at the forefront of the campaign to halt the drive to war. And also there was Alex Salmond, the leader of the SNP then, who joins me now. And I mean, that was a mark of the man, really, because it was a gutsy stand to take, given that Tony Blair, the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, most of the media were in favour of the war.
Yes, and virtually all of the political establishment. I mean, looking back, because everybody in their ante is against the Iraq War now, everybody realises it was a deception on a mass scale. But at that time, there was enormous pressure on Charles to join the rest of the establishment, to do the right thing, to be part of the grand coalition that was waving people off to war. And he very much, as an individual decision, against voices in his own party as well as outside it, said, no, this is wrong. And he had the gut instinct, because Charles is probably his greatest attribute as a politician. He had the common touch, and he knew what the people were thinking and saying.
Do you think people maybe underestimated him as a politician because he could be light-hearted, he could be fun, he could be gregarious, and they perhaps underestimated the seriousness of the man as a politician?
I think everybody in their political career has a supreme test. There's a moment where your mettle is tested, and for Charles that was the Iraq War. That was where his leadership of the Liberal Democrats was tested, and he passed that test with flying colours. And Charles is for many people in politics, it's a pretty closed existence, you know. I mean, your circle of friends, your acquaintances, the people you meet are actually all part of a very, very tight circle of people. Charles's ability, and perhaps because of the constituency he represented in the West Highlands, was that he had a circle of friends, acquaintances, people he knew and trusted beyond the magic circle of politics. And therefore, when it came to a decision where the establishment was facing one way and the people were facing another way, he took the side of the people.
Was he to some extent ahead of his time as a politician? Because much now is made of politicians being able to engage with the public, being able to reach out, to empathise. But he did that in spades without even having to try.
Well, I don't know if he was ahead of his time. I don't see all that much empathy around at the present moment among many parties or many politicians. But Charles had it. He had the common touch, and people loved him for it. And I think the fact he had frailties, if anything, which obviously very much an illness, which was to totally undermine his political career. But I don't think it damaged his reputation in the public, because lots and lots of people have frailties, lots and lots of people have weaknesses, and the fact that Charles had them to a certain extent made him all the more human.
I mean, you were on the same side, as it were, over the Iraq War, but on opposite sides over the independence referendum. He was part of the Better Together campaign. I mean, how did you find him as an opponent? And I mean, to what extent was he, I put it this way, a generous opponent, in that maybe he wasn't so filled with animus or anger? He was willing to see another person's point of view.
Yes, he was an extremely generous human being, and I've met one or two, but not many, people who had a bad word to say about Charles, and that's very, very rare in politics. In terms of the independence campaign, I don't think his heart was in the Better Together campaign. His heart would have been in a pro-European campaign. I mean, that's a campaign that Charles would have engaged in heart and soul, because that's something he absolutely believed in. He was an interesting, complex character, but above all, an outstanding communicator. But a fine human being.
I'm interested, you say you are not convinced his heart and soul was in the Better Together campaign. I mean, do you think he could have become reconciled to an independent Scotland? I mean, was his mind moving that way? What is your sense?
No, I don't think so. But I mean, could he have come reconciled to independent Scotland? Absolutely. He would have had no difficulty whatsoever with that position. I know Charles was a federalist, but he was quite interesting. Charles Kennedy came into the Liberals via the Social Democratic Party. But in many ways, he was more of a Highland Liberal than many people. His really close friends in politics, like John Farquhar Munro, the late John Farquhar Munro, the former MSP for Charles's seat, was one of Charles's greatest friends, and Farquhar Munro was an absolute archetypical Highland Liberal. And so, strangely enough, although he came to the Liberal Democrats through a circuitous route, his political strength and background was in that radical Highland Liberal tradition. I doubt very much if Charles Kennedy had been leader of the Liberal Democrats in 2010, he would have countenanced a coalition with the Conservative Party, for example, because it's much against his nature. And also, he would have that instinctive feel that is something that the constituency of people on the radical, the progressive side of politics would not accept. And that, there's many things make an outstanding politician, but having that instinctive feel for your own constituency and having that range of acquaintances beyond the magic circle of the establishment, these are two absolute outstanding attributes, and Charles Kennedy had them in spades.
Alex Salmond, thanks very much for your time.